Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media, and welcome to episode 5 of Shelf Space. This, of course, is the series where I watch some movies from my physical media collection, and I ask the ultimate question, is this title worth the shelf space that it's taking up? Today we are going to run the gamut of formats. We are going to look at a 4K title with Beetlejuice. We'll move over to Blu-ray with Brahms, The Boy 2. And then finally we'll wrap it up with a DVD from 1999, The Hitcher. The DVD's from 99, not the movie, but hopefully you knew that. But anyway, let's not waste any time at all. Let's dive right into episode 5 of Shelf Space. Alright, so let's start off with what is probably the easiest of the bunch here. A movie that I've seen a ton of times, and I love it, of course. I mean, who doesn't love Beetlejuice from 1988, directed by Tim Burton. So typically this isn't the type of movie I would watch for an episode of Shelf Space. However, the reason I wanted to include this is because of the 4K release specifically. It was the first time I watched this one on my newer TV. I've had it for a number of years now, but the last time I watched this was on my old 4K TV, which is the new one's significantly better. It has Dolby Vision, HDR10. It's just a significantly better 4K experience. So watching it through this time was just a different experience. So I wanted to talk about that. So Beetlejuice is a movie that I don't really think I need to explain. I feel like everybody knows what Beetlejuice is about, so I'll skip the plot synopsis here, and I'll just say I love this film. It is fantastic in virtually every aspect of it. The direction by Tim Burton, I think, is so great in this, and it really has that Tim Burton aesthetic throughout the entire film, which really makes it work so much better than if somebody else may have directed it. Michael Keaton is an icon as Beetlejuice for a reason. He is so great in this movie. He's just hysterical. Alongside him, you have Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin in our two, I guess they would be considered our leading roles here. And of course, Winona Ryder in there as well, who is just an excellent fourth leading character, I guess, in this as well. So I think the cast just works so well together. It is such a fun time every time going through this. The sandworm segments are always stuck out to me, especially when I was a kid. Those terrified me when I watched it, and I see why. They are pretty creepy moments in this film, not quite to the same level as I used to think they were, but they just work really well. And talking about this 4K release itself, I think it looked fantastic. Tim Burton movies just work on this format with the Dolby Vision and HDR10. I think this one has Dolby Vision, if I'm not mistaken. I'll correct myself down here. I don't remember exactly offhand. I should have looked that up before filming. But either way, Dolby Vision or HDR10, it looked fantastic on this release. Like I said, the aspects that really work are those kind of weird, over-the-top, bizarre moments that are super colorful, but colorful in a Tim Burton way, which is going to be a little bit more muted than colorful and, well, I guess, he did the bad Charlie in the Chocolate Factory one, whichever one that was with Johnny Depp. That, of course, is super colorful. But when I think Tim Burton, I think like Batman and Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands, things like that, where it's a little darker in the color palette. And that's exactly what this is here. But it still pops, which you don't normally see that in a color palette of this style, but it works really well here. So I think the 4K transfer on this just looked fantastic. I highly recommend this. This 4K disc came out back at the end of 2020. I think there was a more recent release because there's a Steelbook version of this you can pick up as well. Steelbook looks great, so if you want to go that route, I recommend it. But either way, this is a 4K disc that is absolutely worth being in the collection. So very happy that I have upgraded Beetlejuice to 4K. So is Beetlejuice from 1988 worth the shelf space? Absolutely, it is. And I will give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a classic for a reason, and I highly recommend this 4K disc. So the other two in today's episode were first-time watches for me, but that said, I think doing 4K upgrade reviews or discussions throughout this series is something I'd like to do more of, so you can expect more of that in the future, even if they are movies I've seen before in the past. But anyway, let's move on to the second movie for today. This is Brahms the Boy 2, directed by William Brent Bell from 2020. So if you are anything like me and you really enjoyed the first film in this series, you may be wondering to yourself, how in the world did they do a sequel to this film? And that was the question I had going into it, and I had to watch this. I actually bought this disc secondhand at Disc Replay, if I'm not mistaken, and it's been a while. I've had it for a while, but I haven't watched it until recently. But I actually did a full 4K review here of the Scream Factory release of The Boy, which I thought was a great release, and I really like that movie still. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, I think it's just a fun film that I recommend if you're a horror fan. But how in the world do you make a sequel to that? And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because it's hard to talk about this film without talking about the original. So I'm going to do my best to not give spoilers for the first movie, but if you've seen it, you understand why it would be very difficult to do a sequel to this. And the thing with this one is that it goes places where the original makes you think it's going, I guess I will say. This is a supernatural film. So that's something to keep in mind here. Basically, we are following this family. They have a home invasion in the very opening of the film, which was like super random. I thought for sure that was going to be like a twist later on in the movie, that, you know, something was going on there. But as the movie progresses, they end up moving out to this Hillshire mansion, and the little boy of the group ends up coming across our titular Brahms, the doll from the original film, which, if you've seen the original movie, you might be wondering how the heck that's possible. They kind of explain that in here, but I think that's my biggest issue with this movie, is that as hard as they try to make this one jive with the original, it doesn't work for me. And that's my biggest problem with this. This one is a film that, frankly, I was enjoying for about 3/4 of its runtime. I was having a good time with it. I think the vibe of the movie works, the idea works, but they don't stick the landing like at all. And that's the most disappointing part of this, is where the movie ends up going. And to me, as they try to wrap it up and they try to tie it in with the first movie, they could have just done away with that and just had it be its own thing. And maybe it doesn't make sense on why it's a sequel, but still, it would have made for a better movie overall, which ultimately should be the goal here. But anyway, I think the direction is great. I think William Brent Bell is just a good director. I think he does a great job with the original, and though this one does feel a little like lower budget than the first movie, and I'm sure it probably was, it doesn't quite have the same production value, I guess. I do think he is a great director, and he does make some choices in here that work for this movie. However, this was a Blu-ray release. As you can see on the back here, there's an alternate ending and then some deleted and alternate scenes. This is one I really wish there was an audio commentary track on here that had William Brent Bell talking about some of the decisions that he makes in this movie and kind of why they were made, because there are just out there things that happen. The whole opening of this is so out there, and it's like, that's crazy. Like, that's what's going to catapult this family out to this mansion. It's so random and weird, but I mean, ultimately that works. It's just the ending that really lost me. All of that said, I didn't hate this movie by any stretch of the imagination. I think it is severely underrated on Letterboxd. It has like a 1 to 1.5 stars overall. So people hate this movie, and I can understand where they're coming from, but I think this one deserves a little bit more credit than it's given. Unfortunately, the ending just kind of sucks, if I'm being honest with you, but everything leading up to it, I think, is pretty enjoyable, and I didn't have a bad time with it. I had a good time watching this movie until the end, as I keep repeating. So this is one that, while I think it's underrated, I still can't really recommend it. If you are a huge fan of the original, check it out. You have to see what they do with it, and maybe you can make more sense of it than I was able to, but if you're not already a fan of the original, if you thought the original was just mediocre or not that good, you're gonna like this one even less. I can pretty much promise you that. But for my money, I'm gonna give Brahms The Boy 2.5 out of 5 stars. And this is one I could see myself revisiting down the line, and maybe I'll appreciate it more now that I kind of know where things go. Maybe I'll like it more on a repeat viewing. So is Brahms The Boy 2 worth the shelf space? For me, yes, it is. It's not leaving my collection. I want it to sit right alongside The Boy. But for others, it's not. Like, this is not one you should run out and pick up. Now, I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but if you can watch it streaming and you're interested, go that route before you pick it up, because I think a lot of people just aren't going to enjoy it. And the disc itself is just a little bit lacking. I wish there was something more on here. The alternate ending, it's different, but it's not that different. It doesn't like fix or correct any of my questions or anything. And the deleted scenes aren't that interesting either, quite frankly. So this is one I wish the Blu-ray was a little bit more loaded. And I mean, I just thought to myself, like, would I pick this up if for some reason Scream Factory released this in a couple years on 4K and had all these extra bonus features? Would I pick it up? Honestly, I probably would. One, because I'm a completionist. I do dumb things like that as a collector, but two, I just want to know more from William Brent Bell's perspective on some of the choices that were made in this movie. So that's why, I probably would pick it up if it was upgraded. But anyway, so is Brahms The Boy 2 worth the shelf space? For me, yes. For the vast majority of the population, it won't be. One thing I forgot to mention with this Blu-ray release was how impressive the 5.1 audio track was on this. I thought the audio was just phenomenal on this disc. So hopefully if it does get upgraded, maybe they'll have a Dolby Atmos track, but hopefully the 5.1 track is also included, because I think it just sounds excellent. So I just wanted to toss that in at the end here because I forgot to mention it earlier. All right, let's wrap up today's release with the oldest release in this, both the movie and the format I'm watching here. This is The Hitcher from 1986, a wonderful year, the year I was born, in fact. This is directed by Robert Harmon. So this movie has been getting so much buzz lately, thanks to I think it was a Second Sight 4K release of this, which frankly looks insane. Like, the box set looks so cool. So not only that, but that was an overseas release, but here in the States, it also got released on 4K, just as a standard 4K release. And so everybody's been talking about this. I actually got this through my inherited movie collection, which I did, a number of years ago now. And so that's why this is in my collection. And this is a snapper case DVD, which, like, take a look at this bad boy. This is like snapper case glory. I love that. This release is actually from 1999 and is the only way I own this movie at this point. But that's why I had to watch this. It has been so long since I've wanted to see it, and with all the buzz and the talk about it, I needed to see this because I was like, man, I kind of want to pick up that Second Sight release because it looks awesome. However, I don't want to spend that much money on a blind buy, so I decided, watch the DVD. If I love it, I will upgrade and go from there. So with The Hitcher, this is, wow, over the top and just ridiculous. So this one stars C. Thomas Howell as our main character. He is driving from like Chicago, I think, down to California, if I'm not mistaken. And he is basically trying to deliver a car down there that he's driving. Well, on the way, he decides to pick up a hitchhiker, as you might expect, played by Rutger Hauer. The first thing he says when he opens the door, I think this is the first line of dialogue in the movie, is something along the lines of, "My dad says I shouldn't do this." And then he picks up the hitchhiker anyway. And of course, the hitchhiker's bad, right? Like, obviously, he's going to be a negative character, the antagonist of this entire film. Along the way, we also meet the character here played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. She actually works at a diner that C. Rutger Hauer's character runs into, C. Thomas Howell's character runs into randomly, and she becomes entwined in this whole over-the-top absurdity that is this movie. But boy, oh boy, is this thing fun. I see why this is a cult classic. This just has all the right makings for a cult movie, and it really holds up well today. as long as you don't think too hard about it. Because once you start kind of thinking about this movie a little bit, it just, frankly, it all falls apart. At least for me, it does. But if you can just turn off your brain for an hour and a half or whatever it is, I think there is a lot of fun here. Yeah, 98 minutes. This is just a lot of fun to be had with this movie. As someone who has not seen this until recently, I had no idea that Breakdown is an extremely similar movie. I watched Breakdown earlier this year for the first time, and I loved it. That is a great film. I talked about that again recently, thanks to the Paramount Scares Volume 2 collection I picked up. But boy, oh boy, does that have a ton of inspiration from The Hitcher, and I just didn't realize that at that time, but I definitely see that now. They are both very similar films, and they both go extremely over the top and absurd in what they do. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. Now, for my personal taste, I did prefer Breakdown, I think, to The Hitcher, but I mean, it's silly to compare them because they're both just really good movies that are worth your time regardless. Now, one thing I will say about this is Rutger Hauer, he had to have taken inspiration for his role from the Night of the Hunter, because I could not help but thinking that Robert Mitchum, if this movie was filmed, 30 years earlier, Robert Mitchum would have made a perfect Hitcher in this film. Like, he has to have taken inspiration from that movie, which, if you haven't seen Night of the Hunter, cannot recommend it enough. Robert Mitchum is an absolute genius in that film. His acting is fantastic, and Rutger Hauer must have taken inspiration for that. So highly recommend that if you've not seen it. It is available on the Criterion Collection, which is how I own it. And I think Kino released a 4K of it not too long ago as well. But either way, check it out. It's awesome. And you have to see the vibe. Like, it has similar vibes to The Hitcher in this. And I just think that's so fun. Like, that is so cool. Now, again, the story here, the plot, it goes in just such ridiculous and absurd ways. No normal human being would have made the decisions that C. Thomas Howell makes in this, but regardless, I think it's so much fun either way. And then the ending does get absurd as well, but again, just turn your brain off and have some fun. This is like the definition of a cult classic, and I see why so many people have been talking about it. This DVD, on the other hand, boy, does it leave a lot to be desired. And again, it's an old one from 1999, so it's really old now. But man, there are scenes in this where you can see like artifacts on the screen, and it's very distracting because they're quite noticeable in some scenes. The picture quality is not great, but boy, I can imagine this looks awesome on 4K. So I already have a price alert set up on for an Amazon price to go down. If it drops under 20 bucks, I am upgrading this to the US 4K of it. I don't think I need to pick up the super expensive second sight release. I think I'll be good with the US release on 4K, but yeah, I'm definitely going to upgrade this down the line. So I am going to give The Hitcher from 1986 3.5 out of 5 stars. It is an absolute blast that everybody should check out. Is this DVD worth the shelf space, however? No, it's not. It's not a good DVD release of it. It's not even fair to say, though. It's like 25 years old now, so of course it's not going to be that great compared to what we have now, but I still think it's a cool release. But this one, frankly, I'm going to hold on to it for now. But once I do manage to get that 4K upgrade, which hopefully I'll do by the end of the year here, then this one will definitely be leaving the collection. But however you see it, I recommend checking it out. It is so much fun. So those are my thoughts on The Hitcher. All right, so 3 more movies. One will be leaving the collection with The Hitcher, but not because of the movie itself, just because the DVD is not very good. But 2 more that will be staying. However, The Boy 2... can't recommend it, but if you're a big fan of the original, maybe watch it streaming if you can find it. But anyway, that is episode 5. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. And more importantly, I want to hear your thoughts on these movies down in the comments below. Have you seen any of these? I'm sure everyone's seen Beetlejuice, but what do you think about the 4K release specifically of Beetlejuice? That's The Hitcher, not Beetlejuice. But what do you think of the 4K release specifically of Beetlejuice? Did you love it like I did? I would love to hear your thoughts on these and anything else down in the comments below. And if you know of any other titles in my collection that you would like to hear my thoughts on in an episode of Shelf Space, let me know down in the comments below. But that is going to do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for making it to the end here. That really does help the channel out. And before you go, I'll just encourage you all to consume some media today. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next time.